All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. So go ahead and post your questions if you got them. Let me pull up my question screen here. There we go. Looks like we got a few questions on here. I gotta zoom it in so I can read it. Otherwise, it's too small. All right. All right. So we'll start here with Dax C. Says, how do I stop cupping left wrist at the top? Slow motion practice swings. Really just doing it slow motion and then exaggerate it as much as possible. So, and then also the other wrist needs to work in unison with that as well. That's a big mistake that I see with people that have trouble getting that flat left wrist at the top. First of all, I want to talk about why you wouldn't even want a flat or a cupped lead wrist at the top or left wrist at the top. The main reason is because it's effectively opening the face when you do that. Because if you imagine if you're at a dress here, right, and you're like this, and if you go and I cup the wrist, see what happens to the club face? It opens it up. So if I'm like that at the top, I just have a lot more to do in the downswing to get that club face back to square. So that's really the main reason why you want to do that. But there's been lots of great players that have a cupped left wrist at the top. Freddie Couples is the main one that comes to mind. You see he has a cupped left wrist at the top. And obviously, he's played some great golf in his life. Even later in his life, he was great in the senior tour, right? And the Champions Tour. So, he's trying to get back, I think, out there. I'm not really sure what the status is now. I know last I knew he was really struggling with some back stuff, but yeah, you can have a cupped left wrist at the top. But if you're someone who's struggling with slicing, it can definitely help you maybe get that club face more closed or square at impact if you get that wrist to flatten out a little bit. So if you're someone who's struggling with slicing, it may help quite a bit. So let me go back to what I was talking about before with the trail wrist. If you're cupping that lead wrist here, which for most people is going to be your left wrist for right-handers, right? For 90% of people, that's a lot of that's because you see what I'm doing to my right wrist here. I'm doing that. A lot of people, when they're going up to the top, they're going across the line, and it's from really trying to push this lead wrist, this trail wrist back, and they push it kind of like that. Well, when you do that, look what it's doing to my lead wrist, and it's opening up the face. So you really need to have the wrists work together in order to do that. So what I would try to feel like is I would just do some slow pausing repetitions where you exaggerate as much as possible. So if you're someone who's struggling with slicing, struggling to come into contact with a square club face, and you're leaving that face open at impact, this could be an issue that you may want to look at. So what you just want to do is just go up to the top, and I want to go up to the top, and I want to pause, and I want to exaggerate this as much as possible. So you can see I'm even bowing my wrist, and I'm bending my trail wrist back. So I'm thinking about both positions that I'm doing there. And I'm just exaggerating it as much as possible. I'm hoping that I can get somewhere in this area, but odds are you might be in this area. So we want to get this trail wrist bending back, knuckles bending back as much as we can. Almost like we're just letting the club sit on top of our palm. That's kind of the feeling that we want to have happen. The club is sitting on top of our hand. That's what we want to have the feeling of. And then that lead wrist, the palm or the top of your hand pointing up to the sky. So really, really exaggerate that and then swing all the way through, right? So I just do a bunch of repetitions of that, getting very comfortable with that, getting more and more comfortable, slow, pausing, practice swings, exaggerating as much as possible. Once you get more comfortable with that, then start to do some fluid practice swings. So all that means is you're not doing the pause anymore. You're just going up to the top, nice flat lead wrist, or even, again, exaggerated, really bent back trail wrist at the top. It's going to look more like that. Try not to hit my screen here. I'm going to be looking more like that, really, really exaggerating it. And then I swing through it into the full finish. Then I'll start picking up the speed. Start really slow at first, then pick up the speed, and look on camera and make sure that you're doing that. They actually do have some training aids out there that you can use to they have this wrist snap thing on. So you put it on your wrist, and then it will actually make a snap sound if you happen to break your wrist down. So that's something you can do. Another thing you can do is you can take your so you can find that on Amazon. I can't remember the exact name of it. Just I would just search here. We can do an Amazon search right now, and I'll see if I can find it. But it's something that you can use so that you don't have to check the camera every single time. That way, you're getting feedback on what you're doing. This isn't necessary. I'll show you kind of a home hack you can do to get some feedback as well. But having this training aid might help as well. So golf. Let's try golf wrist training aid. Here, wrist hinge trainer. Maybe that's it. Let's see what that is. No, that's for wrist hinging. What's the one that I'm thinking of? So here's one. Yep. So Tactic wrist over glove golf swing training aid. It's called Tactic. And it just makes a little snap sound whenever you break the wrist down. So that's something that you could get, but you don't have to have that. If you take your glove, I don't have a glove in here, but if you have your glove and you put like a T in over the Velcro so that the T is kind of pointing down, and when you break your wrist, that T will poke you in the wrist. So that'll give you some instant feedback as well. So if you're going up to the top and you're feeling that T poking you in the wrist, you're breaking your wrist down. If you have it nice and flat, it won't poke into your wrist. So that's also something that you can do. Not just build up the speed. And once you get to where you're at full speed with it, without without the golf ball, just doing the practice swings, at that point, then add the golf ball, and you'll have trained getting that wrist in that position. So it just takes repetition, time. It's not something that you just instantly do. You got to break it down and go really, really slow with it. But understand that you can play great golf with a cupped lead wrist. It's just it's just easier to square the face. If you're leaving the face open, then it may be a good idea to work on getting that a little bit more square at the top. All right, so Jim G says, can you talk about interleaving practice, what it is, and does Top Speed Golf recommend it? If so, what are your best recommendations of some interleaving practice? Yes, absolutely. So interleaving practice basically means you're practicing both ends of the spectrum. And what it does, and I'll give you an example of what this is here in a minute. And what it does is it gives you an overall better awareness of where the middle ground is. And it also helps you to understand how to change what you're doing. Because, our feel isn't always the same, right? So we may go out someday and feel like we're coming in with a square club face, but the reality is that we're leaving the face open or we're closing the face too much. So we need to understand, okay, how do I make the adjustment so that I can come in with a square club face? A lot of what golf is just adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. We don't go out every single day and everything's just on all cylinders. Most days something's going to be a little off, and you have to adjust to get the desired result that you want. So an example of what interleaving practice would be hitting draws and fades, right? So you would hit a draw, and then you would hit a fade, and then you would hit a straight shot. And what this does is this gives you're basically training your ability to control your face angle and your club path. So your face angle is the direction the club face is pointing at impact, and your club path is the direction the club head is moving at impact. So if you think about it in baseball terms, if you're a right-handed golfer, if I'm hitting a fade, I'm swinging the club. This is extreme, but this is just kind of help you understand. I'm swinging the club toward third base, right? But my face is pointed toward first base. So that's going to allow me to cut across the ball and hit a fade. Now, if I actually do that, it'll be a huge slice. But that's just kind of the feeling that you're going to have when you do it. Now, to hit a draw, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my face closed, and I'm going to swing more out to the right. So I'm swinging toward first base, but my club face is pointed toward third base. That's going to produce a draw. And then when I try to hit the straight shot, I want to swing straight. I want to swing in the direction of second base, and I also want my path to be in the direction of second base. So you would just alternate hitting those shots. You would hit a draw, you hit a fade, then you hit a straight shot. That's what interleaving practice is. And what that does going from one end of the spectrum to the other, it gives you an overall awareness of where that straight shot is, or where a slight fade is, or where a draw is. And it allows you to be able to control that more easily. And like I said, maybe you go out someday and you usually hit a little baby draw. That's just your stock ball flight. That's what you feel comfortable with. But someday you go out and it turns into a big old hook, right? That's often what happens. People who have a little steady draw, their miss is typically either a block out to the right, or it's a big time hook, right? A snap hook. Well, you may go out someday and that's the miss. You're just getting that snap hook. Well, you need to learn to adjust your feel to get the desired result. And doing that interleaving practice is really going to help you with that. So, if, like I said, if you're hitting that snap hook, now you can kind of have the feeling, okay, how do I fix that? How do I get to where I don't hit a snap hook? Well, if you're hitting that snap hook, that means that your face is too close to the path. That's basically what's going on there. So I would just try to swing a little less into out. I'd probably feel like you're swinging to the left a little bit. Feel like you're almost hitting a cut, and that will most likely straighten that ball out. So like I said, a lot of what it is just adjusting your feel to get the desired result. Our ball striking masterclass course, this is a course that we offer every month or two. Things are there's been a little wrench thrown into the mix here with the COVID stuff going on, with the pandemic stuff going on. So we haven't been able to offer it as much as we'd like to. But hopefully when things die down a little bit, we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. More courses are starting to open. We're starting to see, I think I saw something as last week, it was like 45% of the courses were open. And I think this week, 49% of the courses are open. We were talking about it in a meeting today. So it looks like we're getting to where courses are starting to open up more and more. If we continue on that trend, hopefully courses will be, there'll be a lot more courses open than not. So really just depends on the area where you are and how hardly you're hit there, and so on and so forth, population and all that good stuff. So, but anyway, hopefully we'll be able to offer that course more here in the future. And that's a big part of what we do in that course. Now, in what we've built into a lot of the Top Speed Golf system is also in the test. You may have noticed, like for instance, for the stable fluid spine test, when we're doing the stable fluid spine test, we're doing extreme tilt this way, vertical tilt, right? And then somewhere in between, which is about where you want to be. So that's interleaving practice as well, practicing doing way too much, way too little, and somewhere in between. That's all interleaving practice. And like I said, if you do that, that's going to give you an overall better awareness of where the middle is. And you can do that with anything that you're trying to learn. So yes, we highly recommend it. It's built into a lot of our programs, especially the ball striking masterclass, where we focus on really the contact. But again, that's an additional program that we offer every month or two. So be on the lookout in your email if you're interested in the course. Hopefully in the next month or two, we'll be able to allow another enrollment for that. And it's just like an online program, just like you do the Top Speed Golf, except it includes some extra stuff. It's a 90-day program, includes access to a Facebook group where you can post videos of your swing and so on and so forth. So that's why we can only offer it every so often, because it includes that. All right. John L says, Clay shows in several of his videos the contact glide. Can you explain when you are to start raising your hands in this raising the grip? Does that have to happen at a certain time? So if you imagine your arm, right, is going around your shoulder in a circle, right? So my arm's going to come down, it naturally reach a low point and then start moving back up. And that's typically going to be happening as you're coming in. It's going to be about when your hands are in front of your trail thigh. That's about when you see the hands start to work back up into the swing. And as my shoulder works up, right, the reason why it's not happening right here is because my shoulder's also working up. So I'm coming down, my shoulder's reaching its lowest point, and about right here is when my hands are going to start moving up. And if you are sequencing properly, if you're not sliding way forward, if you're not sliding way forward, if your compression line is correct, you're going to come in here and you're going to be opening up your body. And as your hands reach a lower point and as your shoulder is working up, everything's gonna start to work up. And when that happens, my club is actually working down. So when something works up while something else is working down, it basically creates kind of a more of a level part, more of a level point in the arc. Now, keep in mind, it's not like it comes down and then it's completely flat coming through and then it comes back up. It comes down, and the arc, if you imagine your swing comes down, it's not a perfect circle. It's an arc coming down. And when you're doing this impact glide, when the handle's working up as the club is working down, it creates a flatter point in that arc. It's still an arc. It's still circular, right? But it's not dead flat like a lot of people like. I think that's kind of the way maybe Clay describes it a little bit, is that he does say it's a flat spot, but it's not literally flat. It's a very wide arc. So it's not going to be completely flat, but it creates what may look like to the naked eye kind of a flat spot as you're going through. So if you imagine you have this tight arc and then all of a sudden you have this huge arc, it looks like there's a flat spot in that arc when in reality it's just a bigger arc that's coming in, and it makes it look like there's a little bit of a flat spot there. So that's basically what impact glide is. And that's how, when you come through, that's how it looks like the tour players are just taking the sharp layer, just a little layer of turf, just a quarter-inch thick basically through the turf. If you ever watch, go on YouTube and watch Range Session with Tiger Woods or basically any tour player for the most part, what you're going to see is their divots, they're typically going to come in and they're just shaving that top layer of turf off. The best ball strikers, that's what they're doing. They're not digging way down into the earth and coming way out of it. So that's typically what you're going to see there. Now, I think on TV, a lot of times we see these huge divots. In reality, they're just shaving the top layer of turf off. Now, sometimes they are digging down deep. Maybe they're trying to hit a big spinner or something like that. And if that's the case, they may hit down into the golf ball a little bit to make that happen and dig in a little bit. But usually it's just because the conditions that they play in are softer, so they just tear right through the turf and make these huge divots. When in reality, they're just coming in and it's just like the top layer they're taking off there, and it's just coming off in one piece, and it just looks like they're taking these huge divots. And then it makes people think they want to come in and just really dig into the earth, but that's not really what's going on. They're coming in like this. They're just getting that flat spot, the flatter spot as they're coming through there. So James Q says, have you heard of the PRGR golf monitor? If so, what do you think of it? Yes, we've actually been recommending it. It's actually the most accurate pocket launch monitor, I guess, that we've tested. And we highly recommend it. We've tested a lot of them. We used to recommend the SC200, but they no longer make that specific one anymore. They have a new SC200 Plus, which we found wasn't very accurate for swings that you take without the golf ball. Because that was kind of the knock on the SC200, is that you had to hit golf balls, and they had to be real golf balls in order to get accurate numbers. And it was a great device. It was accurate as long as you were hitting a normal golf ball. A lot of times if you hit limited flight golf balls, it may give you some funny numbers. And so on and so forth. So you had to hit a golf ball with it, but they came out with a new model, the 200 Plus, and you don't have to. It has a mode where you can just not hit a golf ball with it, and it'll measure your speed. But it didn't find it very accurate. It just wasn't very accurate. So we couldn't put our stamp of approval on it and say, hey, this is a great one. Go get this one. And then they also had the SC300, which we didn't found to be any more accurate than the PRGR. And it gave you some more stuff, some extra stuff. Like I think at one time it gave a spin rate, but I actually think they took that away because it was so wildly inaccurate. It may give you launch angle, but we didn't find the launch angle to be very accurate. Just like the extra stuff that you paid for just wasn't really accurate. So we thought for the money, after we tested a bunch of devices, for the money, we felt like the PRGR was the best thing out there. It's the most accurate for club head speed and ball speed out there. And you can also swing without a golf ball, and it will measure your club head speed. So maybe you're stuck at home. You don't have a net. All you have is a backyard with some space. throw the PRGR down and swing, hit a little wadded up piece of paper or something like that instead. You ain't going to hurt anything with that. Hit at that, and it will measure your club head speed when you do that, which we thought was great. And it's accurate with and without a golf ball with the club head speed. So that's what we found in our testing. So it's actually less money than what the SC200 was, and it's a little bit more accurate, and it can measure your club head speed without a golf ball. So there's lots of benefits there. So I'd highly recommend that if you're interested in the PRGR. I can put a link for you here in the. I'll put a link for you in the messages here, so you can see the video that Clay did on it where he talked about the PRGR. But yes, I highly recommend it. It's a great launch monitor. I will say that if you already have a launch monitor, you don't need to go buy a new one, because I will tell you, every single launch monitor that we tested, if you gained speed, it told you that you were gaining speed. The whole point of having these club head speed measuring devices is for feedback, right? That's the whole point of it, is to have feedback. So that way you can see, okay, I did something. Did it help? And this feedback, having a feedback mechanism is really important to be able to do that. So that's what the PRGR provides. But we tested ZEP, we tested Blast Motion, we tested the Supersonic thing, we tested SC200, SC300. What else did we test? We tested a bunch of them. One that we didn't test is the G80, the Garmin one. So we just don't have one. Garmin didn't send us one. I mean, all the things that we've tested are just stuff that people have sent to us just to see what they're all about. But what we found with every single device that we tested, if you swung faster, it told you. It gave you feedback saying, hey, you swung faster. And that's really the important thing that you're after. So whether you have a ZEP, a swing speed radar, a PRGR, whatever it is, if you already have something, stick with it. If you swing faster, it will tell you swing faster. Now, will you actually be swinging 95 miles per hour when it tells you you're swinging 100, or vice versa? That depends on the device. But if it tells you you're swinging fast, if you swing faster, it will tell you that, and that's really the most important thing. So let me post. I'll post that on there so that you can get the link to it. Let me see if I can find it real quick. And I'll post it in the comments here. Clay did a whole video on it, so if you're interested in seeing anything about the PRGR or what Clay has to say about it, we get stuff sent to us, a ton of stuff sent to us. I mean, Clay's garage is just filled with training aids and golf gadgets and junk that people have sent us. And, we've tested out everything, that people have sent to us to see if it's any good, because we'd like to see, hey, is this something that our members could use? Is it actually good? And, if it is, then great. Then we'll tell our members about it. But if it isn't, then we usually just don't say anything about it. So let me post that here. All right, so I just posted the link up there so you can get it. Sorry, I was killing time while I was getting the. So that's what I recommend is the PRGR. If you don't have something already, I recommend the PRGR. It's the most important one, or the most accurate one out there for sure. All right, so let me go on. So Jeffrey J says, can you recommend some simple at-home core and lower back exercises? Jeffrey, I would recommend going to our fitness section and checking that out. We got lots of great stretches and exercises for you to do in there. I will tell you that we are not fitness experts here at Top Speed Golf. If you're looking for great fitness stuff in golf, I'd recommend going to mytpi.com, or searching for if you go to mytpi.com, you can find fitness professionals that are TPI certified. So I'm a golf instructor who's TPI certified. What that allows me to do is that allows me to give you a physical assessment, and I can see, okay, you have a limitation in your shoulder or your hip or something like that. And I can try to get you to swing in the best way possible for the way that you can move. But I don't know how to fix your shoulder or how to, strengthen your shoulder or anything like that. That's what a fitness professional would be for, or even maybe there is actually a medical issue going on, and that would be what a medical professional would be able to do for you. So there's a difference between that. So just because someone's TPI certified doesn't mean they're going to know like a whole workout program for you. Basically, as a golf instructor, all I can do is a screening and be able to see, okay, you can't bend your wrist this way, so we have to try and change your swing a little bit so that you can get the most out of it because of the way you can bend your wrist and so on and so forth. So, so that's what I can do. But like I said, a fitness instructor may be able to get you a whole program to do that. And if you go to mytbi.com, they have a whole library of exercises. As far as the website goes, our website goes, we do have a fitness section, but it's mostly just stretches that you can do to kind of help with your back and things like that. So overall, if you're looking to strengthen things, weightlifting would be but good back exercises would be deadlifts and things like that. Squats are good, things like that. So those are things that you can do to strengthen. But again, I'm not a fitness instructor. So you can find, if you go to mytpi.com, you can go find an expert and you can search for either a golf instructor, fitness professional, or a medical professional. So if you're looking for stuff like that, you're probably going to want a fitness professional that's MyTPI certified, and you can find them in your area. You just type in your zip code wherever you live, or your the city, state, whatever it might be, and there's a map, there's a network of these TPI people, and you can find one that's familiar with. Basically, if you find a fitness instructor who's TPI certified, they're going to understand how the body moves for golf, and they're going to be able to prescribe you something. But as far as we have on the website, that fitness section is it. If you want to find that, just go to the house icon at the top of the screen, click that, scroll down, and then if you go all the way to the bottom, you'll find that fitness course right there. It's with Joe Yoon. Joe Yoon he's actually he's written a book actually since he did these videos with us quite a while ago. It's probably 2017, 2016 when he did those videos with us. And he's written a book since then. I believe it's called Simple Stretching or something like that. And it's got great reviews. I haven't read it, but I don't know if it's golf specific or not, but I see that it's got some great reviews on it. So if you want to check that out, there's that as well. All right, so Patrick C says, ball position. Do you go with driver off the left heel when move the ball back each club? So when you get the wedge, your ball should be in the middle of your stance. All right, so let's talk about ball position. I'm going to really, really simplify this for you because the way you just described it makes it very, very complicated. You do not need a separate ball position for every single club. You really just need two, and if you really want to get fancy, you could do four. So if you're going to do the two ball position approach for any shot that you hit off the turf, every single shot that you hit that's off of the ground, straight off the ground, like the ball is sitting on the turf, you can play straight down from your lead ear, which is just going to be basically a little bit ahead of the middle of your stance. So if you're in your stance here, you're in your proper spine tilt, right? Straight down from the lead ear is going to be a hair ahead of the middle of your stance. Every single shot that you hit off the turf, whether it's a wedge or a 3-wood, you can play from that ball position and play very, very well. Keeps it really simple. The only other ball position that you need is your driver or your 3-wood that's hit off of the tee, which you could do right off the lead shoulder. I don't like to say off of the heel. The reasoning is because if you have a very narrow stance, that can put the ball too far back in your stance. And if you have a very wide stance, it can put the ball too far forward in your stance. So if you play it off of your upper body, which isn't getting wider or narrower, right? Which is really where the club is coming down and bottoming out is from this point. Typically, the club's going to be coming down about just inside the armpit is typically where it's happening, somewhere in that area. So we want to have the club to have room to work up into the golf ball. So playing it off of the shoulder here, the outside of your shoulder, that gives you space to work it up into the golf ball. So, like I said, it's going to be a little bit different for everybody, but a little ball forward, ball back of that is going to be fine. Just test it there, see if it's good, and if not, then move it a ball forward or ball back. Now, if you really want to get crazy and go for 4 ball positions, what you can do, there's 2 more for shots that are hit off the turf. So pretty much every shot, like I said, can be played off your ear. If you're hitting a wedge, you can put it in the middle of your stance. And the reason why you would do that, or this is what I do, the reason why I do that is because it helps me to hit down on the golf ball a little bit, which gives a wedge a little bit more spin. It helps me get a little bit more compression or forward shaft lean with the wedge. Keeps it lower for a little bit more control. Now, your margin for error is going to be a little bit smaller because you're hitting down on the ball a little bit more, but it's not going to make a huge difference in your angle of attack. But putting the ball just a little bit back for wedges is fine. Now, the other ball position that you could do would be for a 3-wood or hybrid, or maybe like a 3 or a 4 iron. Your upper irons and your fairway woods and your hybrids, you could play 1 ball forward of that standard position. So that's straight down from the lead ear. 1 ball forward of that, you could play for shots off the turf that are with your fairway woods, your hybrids, or maybe even your 3, 4, 5 iron. And what that allows you to do is that allows you to come in a little bit more shallow and get the ball up in the air a little bit better, which sometimes for those clubs, it can be difficult. So it does all those things and allows you to do that. So that's all I would do. I was really simplify it. I think a lot of people saw the Ben Hogan, the diagram from Ben Hogan's book where he's moving the ball forward and back and he's opening and closing his stance for all these different clubs. I think we saw that and we got mesmerized and we think, oh man, I need to be doing this. If I'm not doing this, then I can't be hit. I'm not going to hit the ball well. And that's just not the reality. Really, you just need 2 ball positions, 4 max, and you're going to be good to go. I would not complicate it way more than it needs to be, for sure. James Q says some recommend aiming in front of the ball to ensure ball first contact. What is your opinion of this? You aim wherever you need to make ball first contact. For some people, they'll aim in front of the golf ball and they'll hit it thin or they'll top it. Some people, they'll aim behind the golf ball and they'll chunk it, right? Or they'll hit it perfect or they'll thin it. So it's really not everyone's different. Everyone's makeup is a little bit different. So you got to base it on your feel. Like I said, a lot of what golf is adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. If you're kind of thinking, okay, I'm going to try and hit the ground 5 inches in front of the golf ball, and that makes you hit the golf ball perfectly, then do that, right? But some days you may do that, and you may actually end up chunking it or thinning it. So you got to continue to adjust your feel to make that happen. So, if someone aims in front of the golf ball and they hit the golf ball great, who am I to tell them that they need to stop doing that? That's wrong. Or if somebody is aiming behind the golf ball and they flush it every single time, who am I to tell them that's wrong? That's what they need to do to hit the golf ball well. So it's really based on what works best for you. Typically, what I'm focusing on is the very back of the golf ball. That's what I focus on, is hitting the very back of the golf ball. That's it. That's what I focus on, and that's what works for me. But for some people, it may work better to focus on a point in front of the golf ball, or the front of the golf ball, or a point behind the golf ball, or outside the golf ball. It really just, you just have to adjust it based on your own feel to get the desired result that you want. All right. So Ron D says 2 questions and then didn't list any questions. So we'll go on to the next one here. Maybe they're up here, Ron's questions. All right, Ron, I'll get to your question. It looks like you just posted 1 question, but I'll get to John's here first because he's next in the order. So John S says, what drill is recommended to eliminate early extension? I can do drills slowly, 25, 50%, and am able to shallow with good shaft angle around 57, 59 into ball, and same out with correct hips and shoulder rotation, clearing. When I add speed, I go back to early extension and standing shaft up to 66, 68 degrees, or we'll just take time to drill in and be able to go with speed. John, that's exactly right. You probably just need to keep inching up the speed. If you're able to do it at a slower speed, then you just need to keep on working on and exaggerate the movements. Basically, the way that making any downswing thing stick, or to get to where you're able to move your body in a very the downswing happens in a quarter of a second. So we don't have time to think about moving our body in a certain way. We have to just go, right? So if you're trying to change your natural movement, you have to break it down, go really, really slow at first. So here's how I'd recommend doing it. You do it at first, pausing at key checkpoints, and you exaggerate these positions as much as possible. So I wouldn't just come into contact with a little bit of forward shaft lean. I would be getting literally as much as you possibly can. So what that would look like is something like this. I'm coming down into contact, and I'm getting down like this. Like I'm really getting down. Like I don't know that I could get down any more than this to get forward shaft lean. Like I'm really leaning. I'm taking all of the loft off the face. And then what I would do after that is I would do some slow motion practice swings, fluid practice swings, where I'm not doing the pausing, and I'm still trying to exaggerate as much as possible. So I would exaggerate, and then what I would do is I would try to speed that up little by little by little. Again, still trying to exaggerate as much as possible. And I would also be trying to get my big four to be correct. So the big four are going to be where you're striking it on the club face. Now, you're not going to be hitting anything, so you're going to have to look at this on video. But where I strike it on the club face, the direction the club face is pointed, the club path, and where I'm striking the ground. I see a lot of people, whenever they're doing practice swings, they're just swinging the club 6 inches above the ground. That's not really that's not going to be representative of what you're doing when the golf ball is there. So have like a little wadded up piece of paper or a little wiffle ball or something, and go really super slow and get all those pieces correct. Check on camera. Make sure that you're squaring up the club face. Make sure that you're swinging down on plane. Make sure that you are establishing what you're wanting to establish, getting that forward shaft lean at contact. So make sure you're staying in your posture and so on and so forth. So make sure you're nailing the big four, and you can have a good idea where you're striking on the face. If you look from down the line and you draw crosshairs, or if you have that ball there or that wadded up piece of paper, you'll be able to see, okay, now it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to be able to tell if that was a millimeter toward the toe or anything like that, but you'll have a good idea. Because I see a lot of people, they take practice swings, and here's where the club starts, and here's where the club comes down, or it comes down way over here, or it's way up here. The club's coming down nowhere near the impact zone. You're just going to have a real hard time translating that to when you have the golf ball there. So you just need to get in more repetition and inch that up, always trying to push the envelope. If you get to where you're going too fast, then you got to back, and you're not establishing what you want to establish, then you got to back it down a little bit and get more comfortable at that position. So you may even want to do some slow motion pausing practice swings in between that to really help you exaggerate that movement even more coming in there. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Downswing swing changes are tough, especially early extension. It's a tough one to fix. So just really exaggerate as much as you can, go slow, build up the speed, and you'll get there. All right. So Rick A says, I struggle with getting so focused on hitting the ball that I'm not swinging through the ball. If I do the drill where I line up 3 or 4 balls and I hit them one after another and walk into them, I hit them solid with commitment and speed and distance. I need to get the club in motion. Any drills or keys you can suggest? I would just do exactly what you're doing. I mean, I would just not waste any time. Go develop a routine. So if you develop a routine and you think, okay, I'm going to stick to my routine, that's what I'd recommend doing. So if you think about what you're doing when you're hitting the ball really, really solid, so when you're just stepping into it, force yourself to do that on those other shots where you don't have 3 or 4 balls in a row right there. Force yourself to just step in and pull the trigger, and you'll get, if you're hitting the ball better doing that, then that's what I'd recommend doing. So just develop a routine. Don't have the do 3 or 4 balls in a row, like you were talking about, just stepping into it. Then just do 1 ball at a time, but try to mimic that same feeling and force yourself to pull the trigger and go and get into the routine, and you'll get better results doing it that way. So here's one of Ron D's questions. Ron D says, when I make the turn on the downswing, I have a tendency of topping the ball because I'm standing up. How do I make the turn and stay down? Also, when you make the move getting lag, are your hands and arms loose or relaxed during the downswing through the release? Thanks. All right. So when I make a turn on the downswing, I have a tendency of topping the ball because I'm standing up. How do I make the turn and stay down? So typically tops are caused by not getting a proper weight shift. So that's from the low point happening before the golf ball. So our club comes down, reaches a low point, and then works back up. So what I'd recommend doing is working through our stop chunking and topping course and get to where you're getting fully loaded up properly and you're getting that weight shift and turn to the lead side. Now, what may be going on here is you're doing this turn, you're trying to turn through impact, and you're doing this, and you're kind of flipping and early releasing, and you're not really turning through. And that could be coming from not getting a proper weight shift, but it's also going to be coming from not really turning your hips and getting your shoulders square at the same time. You're trying to get you're trying to keep your shoulders square here, but you're not really turning your hips to make that happen. So in order for that to happen, you have to have something that's called side bend. And that's where I'm coming in and I'm also bending into my side. So in order to do that, I have to try and get my shoulders more vertical. So I'd feel like your shoulders are rotating more like a Ferris wheel versus like a merry-go-round. Your hips are turning like a merry-go-round, right? But your shoulders are turning more like a Ferris wheel, more vertical, more perpendicular to the ground. And that's going to allow you to stay in your posture, turn your hips, and keep your shoulders square as you're coming through. Because if you imagine, if I don't have side bend, and I'm actually turning my hips, I'm going to go like that, right? And that's possible. That could be what you're doing, is that you're just kind of cutting across the ball and topping it and hitting down into it like that. So what you need to do is turn this into that, right? See how I turned into my side here? I'm bending down into my side. So side bend is going to be if you have your arms at your side like this, and then you crunch into my side like that. So I just kind of slide my hand down my thigh, down to my knee. That's going to be right side bend as I'm coming through. And that's what's happening as I'm coming into contact, as I'm opening up, and I'm also keeping my shoulders relatively square here. So that's what that is. So that's what I would try to do, is try to get that side bend. It's hard to say without seeing your swing, Ron, but I'm guessing that's what's going on there. And he says, also, when you make the move getting lag, are your hands and arms relaxed, loose or relaxed in the downswing through the release? It's really tough to say because everyone's feels are different. I would say no, but at the same time, it may feel differently to you. Like if you're just putting a death grip on this club, you're using all arms in the downswing, right? If you're used to doing that, then it's probably going to feel like, if you get your body moving properly, it's probably going to feel like your arms are loose and relaxed, even though that's not the reality. But if you're someone who does have proper sequencing and is rotating their body, your arms do not feel relaxed. You're really feeling like you're pushing through with your arms because you're moving your body correctly. So like I said, everyone's feels are a little bit different. But I would say most people probably need to feel like their arms are relaxed because they need to get their body moving better, which it kind of sounds like that may be what's going on, because if you're kind of cutting across and topping the ball, that's from the arms really chopping down. That's from using mostly an arm swing, which is a big thing that people struggle with. So I would say it's probably going to need to feel more relaxed for you, but I would just base it on your results. I'd try feeling like your arms are going as hard as they can and try feeling like they're really relaxed and see what kind of results that you get. But odds are you probably need to feel like you're more relaxed and more like your inner body, your core and your legs are more engaged in pulling the club through. All right. So Jeffrey J says, are you saying tip.com? No, at mytpi.com, mytpi.com. That's where you want to go for exercise. If you want a library of golf exercises, or to find a personal trainer who's versed in how the body moves for golf, that's where you want to go, because you'll be able to find somebody in your area. If you go to the mytpi.com, you can find at the top of the screen there, you'll see where it says find an expert. You can find an expert in your area. Search if you're searching for exercises, for fitness stuff. You need to look for a fitness professional, not a golf professional. Maybe you want a medical professional too. A lot of times these medical professionals that are TPI certified, they are chiropractors. So some people that get you in alignment, that sort of thing. In fact, one of the founder of MyTPI is a chiropractor, or what used to be a practicing chiropractor. Now he does TPI stuff. So Greg Rose, if you've ever heard of him. But anyway, so Thomas C says, for a right-handed player, can the right hand control the rotation of the wrist on the downswing to square the club face, like in the pet the grass drill? Both hands are, you got to use both hands. They got to be working in unison together, right? So yes, you do need to use your right hand, but you also need to use your left hand to do that. Because if you're pushing through with your right hand, right? So if I'm coming through and I'm doing this with my right hand, but my left hand wants to do something else, usually the hand that wants to do something else, because it's the easiest thing to do, is going to win, right? So the hands have to work together. That's why in the pet the grass drill, you're focusing on how the right hand moves, and then you're focusing on how the left hand moves, and then you focus on how the hands move together, right? They have to be working together. So understand that pet the grass drill, that's not teaching you how to do it with your right hand only. It's teaching you, okay, this is how the right hand's moving. This is how the left hand's moving. This is how the hands move together. They have to move together. You can't have them fighting against each other. You need them to be working in unison together. So John G says, not to be overly repetitive, can you show the angle of your right hand halfway down in the forward swing? So typically it's going to be in a bent back position. And it really depends on the player. Some players are squaring the club earlier. Some players are squaring it a little bit later. But typically it's going to be in a more bent back position. So if you're at the top here, it's bent back. And I'm coming down. I'm halfway down. You can see it's in a bent back position. If you look from this angle, I'm in a bent back position. When I come into contact, it's starting to release a little bit. For better ball strikers, it's going to be starting to release a little bit. So if you look from this angle, I'm basically almost all the way bent back right here. And as I come into contact, it's going to be just releasing a little bit. And then as I get into the full finish, that's where it releases. When you look at poor ball strikers, those who are releasing the club early, we're getting down here. It's already releasing too much. And then they get to contact and the trail wrist is already flat, or maybe even inflection here coming through contact. And that's where you see the poor ball strike. That's the early release, hard to control the club face when you do that. So we want to have body rotation coming into contact, trail wrist in a bent back position coming into contact, and that's going to allow you to have that face square earlier so that you can rotate into contact. So it's going to be more in a bent back position. Most people are going to be doing this too much through contact. It needs to be more in a bent back. And if you have body rotation, that's going to allow you to do that. If you're not rotating your body, then you're going to release early, because if your body decelerates, it accelerates everything else, right? So we need to keep our body rotating so that it's still decelerating, but it's not happening back here. If it stalls out back here, you're done. You're just going to flip the club. You're not going to be able to stop your hand from doing that, right? The physics are going to be against you. So we need to keep moving, keep rotating so that you can release that out in front and have that position there at impact. All right, so David S. says, how can I best practice to learn how to square the club face? Pet the grass, knuckles down. Yeah, those are good. Those are all really good. I have a decent forward shaft lane at impact, but my left wrist break down too early prior to straight line release. It appears my rolled release is causing this early release. So I would just try to feel like you're holding down the face, to feel like you're holding the face through contact. So if you're already squaring up the face earlier, you don't need to roll the hands as much through impact because it's already square. If you roll the hands, you're probably just going to close the face, or you're going to stand up so that you don't close the face, right? You're going to be doing something like that so that you don't close the face. So if you have that club face square already, I would just try to feel like you're holding it there, right? You're holding that face from here down to contact, and you're coming into contact with body rotation. That's really what's squaring the face, is my body rotating into contact, not that, right? So the difference is, if I'm right here, I have this face already square, right? The handle, my club face is turned down a little bit to the ground. I'm just going to be, from this angle, I'm just going to be rotating into contact. And you can see here, I'm not going like that. I'm just rotating into contact. I'm not rolling my hands over. You can see that my trail hand is pointed down toward the ground. My lead wrist is kind of driving, the emblem of my glove is kind of driving toward the target, right? And that's allowing me to come into contact with a square club face and forward shaft lean. But if I have this face kind of open like this, it's already open, then I have to roll my hands over to square the face and stand up. And that's going to be an early release. That's going to look something like this, right? You can see my wrist is rolling over, my trail wrist is rolling over, and my lead wrist, the emblem of my hand, is starting to push left of the target. So it's going to be more of a hold as you're coming through contact. Feel like your lead elbow is pointing toward the target at contact. That's what you want to feel like. It's pointing toward the target at contact. If you're rolling your arms over, that elbow is going to be pointing more toward my hip as I'm coming through contact. So feel like it's rolling. It's not rolling, but pushing toward the target as you're coming through contact. And that will help you to kind of hold that face and allow you to get in a better position. So Raymond K says, in general, how does a high ball hitter change his trajectory to hit lower and vice versa on a consistent basis? It really comes down to forward shaft lean, right? And it can be a little bit controlling your compression line a little bit, but mostly it's going to be the amount of forward shaft lean that you're delivering to the golf ball. So if I'm really trying to hit a low stinger type shot, I'm making sure that I'm coming into contact and I'm really getting a lot of rotation, and I'm able to get, that's what's going to allow me to get my hands more forward as I'm coming into contact. That's what's going to allow that to happen. I'm really trying to feel like I'm getting low to the ground and really de-lofting that face. If I'm trying to hit it higher, I'm going to feel like maybe I'm releasing this club a little bit earlier and I'm adding loft to the face, and that's going to allow the ball to go higher up in the air, right? The other thing that you can do, like I talked about, is your compression line. So if I'm really angled forward, right, if I'm coming into contact, I'm really kind of chopping down into the golf ball. That's going to make it come out a little bit lower. And then if I'm more angled away, I'm coming in more shallow. That's going to make it go up in the air a little bit. So those are the couple of things. But the main thing is forward shaft lean. If I'm trying to get that ball low, I'm really trying to open up my body, get that club face square, get my hands more in front of the golf ball to really drive that ball low. And if I'm trying to hit it higher, I'm going to let my club release a little bit more, add loft, and get the ball going up in the air a little bit higher. All right. So Kim M says, how should the left ankle, knee, hip, and shoulder line up at impact? Clay seems to have shoulder back at impact. So this is a compression line. If you're not familiar with this, this is one of the keys in the Top Speed Golf system. It's one of the 5 pieces of the Top Speed Golf system. So the Top Speed Golf system, we talk about the compression line. It's your lead ankle, your lead hip, and your lead shoulder, just like what you talked about. And we want that to be all in a straight line, slightly angled away from the target. So as I'm coming into contact, if you were to draw a line from my ankle to my hip socket to my shoulder socket, so if you go to all those joints, if you draw a line through there, you're going to see that to be all in a nice straight line and then slightly angled away from the target, like 2, 3 degrees, something like that, somewhere in that area. Now for a driver, it might be a little bit more because, one, I'm typically a little bit wider for the driver, and also I'm trying to hit up on the golf ball with the driver. You may see it be a little bit more. That's going to promote that more upward angle of attack into the golf ball. Now, you can be very slightly bumped with that hip. You can have the hip just a little bit out in front or just a little bit inside of that. That's fine. But it's where you'll run into issues is when you get the hip really bumped out. And if the hip's really bumped out of that line, you're going to have a hard time rotating the hips as you're coming into contact because everything's just going to get blocked up in here, right? So it's just going to make it more difficult if you do that. Now, we don't want to be too vertical or even angled toward the target because that's going to promote a chopping down angle into the golf ball. And we don't want to be too far angled away because that's probably going to promote a more upward angle of attack on the golf ball, which we don't want for irons, right? We want to hit down on the golf ball a little bit. For a driver, that's good. That's going to allow us to get up into the golf ball. We can still overdo it, but we don't want to be so far angled away that you're going to have issues there. But yeah, you're exactly right. You want to have those all on a straight line. All right. So William N says, hitting irons much better after stable spine course, but am hitting low drives when I tee the ball up on par 3. I'm not teeing the ball high at all. So hitting it low. So you might be teeing it too high and the club's coming up and hitting on the bottom of the face, the lower part of the face. So for a driver, the face is domed. So if you hit it lower on the face, there's less loft there. So that might be why you're hitting it lower. It's hard to say without seeing your swing actually, but that might be what's going on. So John, I actually just answered a question for you. So I see there's a few more. So I'm going to answer those first. And if we have time, I'll get back to you. So Curtis P says, sorry for the bother, but do we get a free membership with V1 Golf? Yeah, V1 Golf is a free app. You don't have to be a member of Top Speed Golf to get that. It's a free app. You just go to wherever your app store, whether you use iPhone, iPad, an Apple device or an Android device, just go to the app store, type in V1 Golf. It's going to be a red icon, and it's a free download. You can use it for free. They do have a paid version. You do not need it to video your swing. This is what we use for swing reviews. So if you're interested in swing reviews, I'd recommend getting acquainted with the app. But that's basically how it works. Is you don't need the paid version. I don't even know what the paid version gets you, to be honest. Now, if the paid version has stuff on it that you want, then sure, go for it. But you don't need it to just video your swing. All right. So I'll probably take one more question here. So Richard H says, I'm struggling turning away from the ball. I know the left hip should move behind. When you turn the hips, are you turning toward 11, assuming 12 is target? And you swing from your side, from inside out, 12 o'clock, if that makes sense. You turn the hips. Are you turning toward 11, assuming 12 is the target? Turning toward 11. I don't really know. I'm not really sure exactly what you're trying to say. But if you're having trouble turning your hips, I would go to the power turn course and work through there. There's some great drills in there for hips. But one that works really well is to think about your belt buckle and try to turn your belt buckle away from the target as much as possible. So if I'm thinking about my belt buckle here, I'm at address. If I'm having trouble turning my hips, I'm thinking about turning my belt buckle as much as possible. The other thing may be you might have a limitation in your trail leg, right? So if you are setting up to the golf ball with your feet dead square like this, angle your trail foot out a little bit, and that can free up your hip a little bit more. The other thing that you can do is allow this heel to come up. You don't have to keep your lead foot planted in the ground. You can lift it up to free up the hips a little bit more. So if I go like this, I actually have internal rotation limitation. I can only internally rotate my leg about 20 degrees. You see like that? I can only do that about 20 degrees. Some people can do 45 degrees. Those people are more flexible in their hip. Now, I can do external rotation a lot. No issue there. External rotation is good. Internal rotation is only 20 degrees. So if you're like me, you may want to angle this out. So if you look, if I keep my feet square here and I don't lift up my heel, I can only turn my hips about that much. That's maybe 20, 25 degrees at most. So if I angle this out, right, and I also angle out my lead foot too. So I have my feet flared out here, about 30 degrees each. If I do that If I angle this foot out and let my heel come off the ground, now look how much more I can turn my hips. A lot more. I can turn my hips 70 degrees easily, right? So give that a try. Let this turn out. Let this heel come off the ground when you're turning your hips, and you'll be able to turn a lot better. So that would be my best advice there. So sorry, everybody, I couldn't get to everybody's questions. I do have to get going. I do have a meeting I got to get to in like 2 minutes. So apologize if I wasn't able to get to everybody's questions. But everyone who asked a question did get answers. Some of you asked multiple questions. So I tried to get the people that hadn't asked a question yet. So thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a good rest of your day and stay safe out there. Talk to you next time.